Welcome to the Fandom Fighters podcast. I am Fern.
And I'm Toby.
And today I'm
Sorry, I was going to say that we're back. It's been a minute.
Yeah, we're back. Tobes here has been working a lot, and I've been doing a lot of really important laying around.
Yeah, to be fair, like the only time we get for recording stuff, it always ends up being like D&D recording time. And with all like creative projects, it's been reset like 3 times now, and is we're going on the 4th reset. Who cares? We'll get a D&D podcast out eventually.
Eventually. But that does have to do with our topic today and why we have come out of hiatus. Because I just had to hop on this topic while it was fresh. This is fascinating stuff here, and it's been all over my TikTok. And
yes, mine
Toby,
too,
I believe, you've seen it too, that's how you know.
It's big. It's big business, and it's like I saw. I was like, this would be fun to cover on Fandom Fighters, and then I forgot about it immediately. Most because I don't watch Critical Role. It's too long form for me, and my attention span's not good enough to pay attention to it the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started out watching Critical Role right when we started playing D&D, because it was, I feel like it's maybe the biggest D&D fandom. Don't quote me on that.
I think it is. I do think it is.
And so I started watching... I tried watching Campaign 1, didn't really get into it. I tried watching Campaign 2, and I got through some of it, but then I was like, oh my god, this is so intimidating.
It's a lot.
It's so much. There's like... I could pull up how many hours there are. I've done it before, but it's a big number. So I kind of dropped that and then started watching Dimension 20. And then they announced their new show for the summer, Exandria Unlimited. And I was like, I really want to keep up with that. I ended up not. But I did watch some of it, and I liked it. I really like the cast. I love Amy. She played She-Ra / Adora in the Netflix reboot, which is like one of my favorite shows.
I haven't watched yet and still need to.
Oh my god, it's so good.
I also pulled up information from March 11th, 2017. The total time at that point for Critical Role was 339 hours and 30 minutes.
Wow, and I feel like it's probably like doubled or tripled by that.
It had to have tripled, yeah. It's nuts. Wow. That's a lot of D&D.
It's a lot of D&D. So I was like, this new campaign that they have, one, it's much more diverse. There's it's not all white people this time, which is exciting. And I knew of Amy, and Abria is the DM.
Love Abria.
And I know of her from Dimension 20 Misfits in Magic, which has my whole heart. I absolutely adore it. It's like the first D&D thing that I watched all the way through, enthusiastically paying attention the whole time.
Oh, yes. It's my favorite thing that's been put out. And that's even saying, we've talked a little bit off mic about it, but it's like, it was super short, and it could have been longer, but it's still it's my favorite thing that they've done. Misfits of Magic. Mostly because I idolize Brennan a lot, and very much view myself in his position where I'm like a permanent DM.
Yeah.
So I hardly ever get to play, and seeing him play and be happy and like being surprised by what happens is so good. And then just some of his moments, because he knows how to play characters so well. He's such a good actor. Good improv.
His dynamic with Lou just warmed my heart so much. They're so adorable. But back to Critical Role, I did watch, like, maybe not all of the first episode, but I tuned in when they were live streaming it, especially when they were introducing their characters. And I joked with our D&D group, because we're doing a new campaign right now. And I had made a new character, and I remember when I made this character, it was when I thought she was going to be part of the podcast. And I was like, okay, I want to make a magic user. and I want to make her like cute, but I want to specifically make her so that people don't think I'm copying Jester, the Laura Bailey's character from
Yes.
campaign 2 of Critical Role. So I went out of my way to make my character Juniper nothing like Jester, except for they both start with J. And so I made, and people who've watched Exandria Unlimited will start laughing at me right now. I made a character with deer antlers and deer ears and green hair, and she's a druid.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine my surprise when Ashley Johnson introduces her character, and not only, I mean, mine is like a kind of Fae-born, like half, like Fae-descended character. Hers is a, what are those called? A satyr, I think.
Satyr, yeah, something like that, or like
So,
I
yeah,
don't know,
something like
specific
that.
name, yeah.
Hers has hooves, but they're basically the same. They're both druids. Mine is a spore druid. Hers, I think, is a, I don't remember what
Wildfire.
her, wildfire druid.
It's one of the druids that I'm very interested in potentially playing someday. So I
It's
remember reading, it's like, oh, somebody else is playing Wildfire. Okay.
Yeah. Mine has an owl and hers has a monkey.
Oh, I didn't know it had a monkey. That's cute.
Very like a fire monkey. It's awesome.
Ooh, yeah, I forgot the Wildfire druid does take a familiar that is on fire.
Yes. And not only that, but she named her character Fern.
Yeah, that was the funniest point. You're like, the character's named Fern. I was like, oh wow, they just nailed us on that one, huh?
I was like, I thought like I had such a not even an original character, but I was like, I don't know, I put so much time into making sure that my character was nothing like the most popular Critical Role character at the time.
Yeah.
And then a new campaign starts and my character is basically right there, but better because it's made by like a professional actor and D&D player.
That's a weird thing to think. It's like this person has made it like a professional character, but like, I mean, in the scheme of things, everybody's still making characters the same way. I bet her thought process might have been like, I don't want this character to be too much like Jester.
Right?
Like...
So we probably had the same, and like, she definitely made her character before I even thought to come up with, before I even started playing D&D. Because I didn't start until like April of this year. So
did they talk about when they started making characters for it? I don't know everything about it.
Sometime last year.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, but you know, I was like, that's really cool that myself and a professional, basically D&D player, came up with such similar characters. Like, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then when you said that we weren't going to use that campaign for the podcast, I was a little relieved. I was like, good. Yeah. I wouldn't want anybody to think that I copied this character, but like, it's really fine. I don't care.
That was part of it, and another part of it was just like, we've been having scheduling conflicts, and it's hard to get things going. And then the Audacity switch around really threw things in a wrench for us. Like we didn't record. Like we had one other shot to record Phantom Fighter stuff, and we didn't because like it was like the day that the Audacity stuff happened. I had to make sure that I didn't have the newest update for it. I was like, I'm too stressed out now about Audacity.
Yeah, that was very bad timing.
I do have the good Audacity still, thankfully, and I've made it so that I will never change.
Good.
But it's, you know, that's just a production thing too. Is like I love the campaign. It's super fun, and the characters are fun too. But the setting that I have, I thought would play better in a recorded setting, but it kind of doesn't because the way the world works is kind of like, it's fun if you want to play like a game that's more random. Like I was talking earlier about I do everything in this game on like random tables, and there's like a fate system where the more good things happen, the more bad things happen, and it balances out eventually. And that just doesn't play super well in audio because like I know the numbers, but I didn't have like a way of sharing that with the listeners.
Right.
So I was like, this is not,
they're just like, not clued into that super cool mechanic that you have.
And if I talk about it in the beginning, they're like, okay, that's cool, and it could build tension, but then it's like, you know what? No, I'm just gonna finish this arc out, and we'll go move on to the next thing and have fun with that. and also hopefully find some more folks, because I do want at least one more person in the group, just to like, I don't know what it is. I want 6 people total for the recording.
That feels like a good number for D&D.
Yeah, and it'll let me do like 1 to 2 hour episodes without feeling like somebody's taking up too much space each time. Because with a limited pool of characters, then you end up like, oh, this person talked a whole lot this episode.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than I thought, but it's also a lot less work at the same time in a weird way.
It gives me ultra respect for all of these other like D&D podcasts and people who live stream, especially.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. Like, it's not my method. I could probably live stream it, but the way I stream is I have to be like super into what the chat's saying.
Yeah.
So I would be distracted the whole time. There's no way I could be live and not be watching chat like a hawk.
Just obsessively.
But I think like it, because you're getting into dungeon mastering. I'm gonna play in your game. I mean, we could stream that maybe, but yeah, that'll be something we'll figure out later.
It's very daunting.
Before we started this recording, I actually sat down, taught Fern like everything she needs to know about running Roll20 games, and now she's an expert. So it's absolutely something that could happen.
I am now a part of the D&D community.
You've been a part of the D&D. The first time you sat down and made a character is when you joined the D&D community. I'll have it. No other things about that. I do think there should be a little gatekeeping for the weird. I sent you. I have a thing. I don't know. Should I talk about the clown thing? I don't even know if I should. No. Okay, we're gonna cut that part out.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, okay. Back on track.
So
we'll just remove the whole gatekeeping thing too. Don't,
yeah.
I want gatekeep. That's what I was referring to when I said there should be a little gatekeeping. But that's just weird. That was just an outlier, I hope. But okay. Well, okay. Fresh start. Right now.
Let's go
back into it. You said something I think is super important, and a lot of people don't really internalize very well, is that there are no original ideas in D&D.
It's happened to me so many times already, and I've only been playing for a few months, where I'm like, oh my god, I have this really cool idea for content creation for our podcast. It's this, and then Toby is like, oh, so just like so-and-so on this very popular D&D media, and I'm like, yeah.
It falls to that, but it also falls to a lot of like character design ideology too. Like you want to run like a modern game, and D20 has a modern setting, the Unsleeping City, which is wonderful. It's a very good series. And you talked about having a druid that was very specifically like a city druid. I was like, oh, like Kugrash, famous city druid in the Unsleeping City. And like, yeah, because people, I think, take for granted the similar pathways that people will think about things, and it's not a bad thing. Like having city druid as like a subclass is interesting, and there's some cool things we could do with that.
Right, and just because you utilize something in your campaign that somebody else has utilized before doesn't mean that you are telling the exact story or that you have the same intent. And I think people forget that. And it goes not just with D&D, but we'll even talk about in a future podcast episode, like intellectual property law and like how people can abuse that system to take down their rivals, basically. And how, storytelling is based on tropes that everybody recognizes and everybody uses.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell a story that has a bunch of original stuff that doesn't relate to anything, nobody's gonna understand your story. That's that's the problem. And like the only issue that I really run into, and I can't speak to like any specific instances of this, but it's like blackface at the table kind of thing, where if you like, I'm not gonna play a black character. I play somebody from like a life that I couldn't potentially live. Like I can play an elf that lived in the forest. I can like put myself in that situation because it's like weird. It's you're like a
and there's no real elves in the forest in real life whose experience you are co-opting for your own personal gain. And we will delve much deeper into this topic a little bit later in the episode. So I'm glad that you brought that up and that you have thought about that, of
Oh
course,
yeah,
because this has been a big
it's
topic
crazy.
recently. So another player character in Exandria Unlimited is played by Amy Carrero. She's a Dominican Puerto Rican American voice actress. Like I said, she played Shira in the Netflix reboot, and she is a first-time D&D player on this podcast, which is super exciting. I love when they bring in new players, especially having like Matt Mercer, who created the world that she is playing in, be at the table with her and like help her create her character. I think that's super awesome. And like I said, they brought so many people of color into their world and into their game, which I think really shows that Critical Role is like listening to their fans and acknowledging that, you know, they have an all-white cast in their main campaign. And I really appreciate this little mini series that they're
Oh
doing,
yeah.
and I hope that they'll do more stuff like this and just continue to get better. So Amy has a character named Opal. This is who she's playing. Opal is a human warlock with opalescent hair and an opal necklace.
Mm-hmm.
Amy said in a tweet that Opal is whatever Exandria's version of Latina is,
Yeah.
and drew on a lot of her own experience as a woman of color to shape Opal's character. She worked with Matt and Abria to come up with where in this world Opal would be from. That was, I think she said, as close to Laredo, Texas as they could get,
Yeah.
because she
That's
really wanted to shape her upbringing. She wanted her upbringing in this world to shape the character, and it was based off of her own upbringing, which is awesome. I love that.
yeah, exactly. That
Uh,
is that's very important. Like, to every character you make is part of you anyways, and a lot of people are like, oh,
mhm.
this person is so different than me. It's like, no, it's not. It's
Yeah,
you are in the, like, your brain is in that character
yeah.
no matter
You
how you want to
can't
do it.
divorce yourself from your creation, basically.
Mhm.
Your experiences and who you are as a person shape the type of characters and stories that you make, no matter what.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, she like, they made Fantasy Texas,
Hmm.
which is wonderful. Uh, what
And I
happened at?
believe it was a town or a city that was already existing in this world, which is super cool.
Oh yeah,
So that ties into the lore even. Um, so everybody was, you know, enjoying the live stream, enjoying the campaign. And then a TikToker and Twitch streamer by the name of FreckledHobo um, made, I believe, a TikTok. I'm not really sure where all of this originated, but I saw it first on TikTok. But this person has 1 million TikTok followers. She has a monetized Dungeons and Dragons Twitch stream. She's played on other people's streams in their campaigns. Her Twitter bio states that she's an actress, model, geek, and public figure. Um, so she makes a TikTok claiming that Opal was her character and that Amy had clearly stolen the character from her.
Ooh.
Because her character of Opal was also a warlock, also had light hair, also had an opal necklace, and the way that they played the characters even seemed a little bit similar, although I went through and watched some of her TikToks where she cosplays as her character Opal, and she's like ditzy, but she also is played as like an evil character who will like kill you mercilessly. She's evil aligned.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Amy's Opal is like that, although I
Mm.
haven't watched enough of the campaign to know. But like I watched it and I was like, I mean, I see the similarities, of course, but I also see the similarities between these characters and like Opal from Steven Universe.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, Steven Universe did it kind of first. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's Pearl and the fusion of Pearl and Amethyst is Opal,
Yeah.
and It's the opalescent hair,
Mhm.
opal medallion.
Yep.
It's a lot. I
Mhm.
like even looking at like the time frame of things. I'm confused as to like what the complaint is from Freckled Hobos. Like, is this a merchandised character that you've made that is popular enough that you can actually complain about it being stolen, or is it like, oh, this character's kind of like mine?
Right, like there's
Like,
no copyright. She doesn't have like a legal claim to her character. And like anyway, she said that she'd reached out to Critical Role's legal team. I believe she said that she intended to sue them or like implied it. Uh, she said that she reached out and that the talks did not go well and that she felt really belittled. Um, she then
oh,
made
she
some.
got dunked on. Like,
Yeah,
that's what we're, yeah, like very fairly dunked on by a giant media thing. Like,
right. They're like, "Oh, they have the same hair. Sorry." So she goes even farther and she says that she told their team that she would not sue them if they I think she had like three different options. She either they either took on her campaign that had Opal as like an alternate universe version of this campaign and made it like official Critical Role lore,
what the fuck?
like canon.
That's why. What?
Yeah. Or they gave her a guest role on Critical Role.
Okay, I don't understand like why you would go into this. Like, you guys really made me mad. I want to work with you. Like,
Yeah,
what?
like let
Like,
me hang out with you for a couple hours and role play with these people who I'm mad at.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No. So I think she had one other option, but I can't really remember what it was. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
She's
honestly, with these
basically
ones,
extorting the people who stole her work to gain clout. She said that she did this because it seemed more simple and fun than going to court. And she's since deleted uh, all of the TikToks in which and comments in which she said this. But I will fully credit a couple people for collecting proof of this and for calling her out and holding her accountable. Um, but yeah, it's baffling.
yeah, this is like, I can't even relate this to some. We've talked about other things that are kind of like this in a weird way.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, but it's like, uh, it's just like, what did she didn't do anything? Like, I don't
Yeah.
get what I don't. She has no ground to stand on for this.
Uh-huh.
It's just like, what did she hope to gain from doing this? Like, is it just about trying to get, like, she's saying people stole her work to gain clout, but she's saying that to them to get the clout. It's such a weird.
It's
Uh,
it's so like backwards. And then so people were calling her out and saying that she was just doing this for clout. She had even said in one of her TikToks that she was a small creator and that for small creators their fans are everything. Uh and then somebody said you're doing this to gain clout and she was like, I don't need clout. I have 1 million followers.
oh my
And
god,
it's like,
yeah,
so what? So
small
which one is
creator.
it? She also said that everybody in the D&D community knew each other, and so clearly the people of Critical Role must know who she is, and clearly they copied her character. And I'm like, in what world does everybody in the D&D community know each other? One, it's gigantic. Two, I'm in the D&D community and you have 1 million followers and I've never heard of you.
Yeah, it's I don't even know where to start with it. This is another one that's making me mad.
Mhm.
Just like, because I mean, I'm not new to this. It's the thing is, it happens over and over again all the time, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you think it would work this time? Unless, like, I don't know how old this person is, Freckled Hobo. Like, unless they haven't been around to see like this happening to other like content creators who are like oh, they're obviously stealing my shit, right?
Yeah.
It's like people that started wearing mustaches after Dr. Disrespect's like he didn't go around saying you're stealing. Well, he might have because it's in character, but he's doing it like in a
Right.
character way. But like he didn't go around like I'm gonna sue you because you're wearing a mustache and then like actually try to do it. He probably like would have said I'm suing you and then moved on.
Not done it. Yeah.
Like it's like the weird conflation of like what I just don't get what you're trying to gain. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And now this is where it starts to get a little fucky.
Oh, it's
And
starting. Okay.
yep,
I'm
this
glad.
is where she starts to make me really mad. Is where she claims that, like, so she created Opal, I think back in, like, January, maybe, at the
Mhm.
earliest. And she claims only just recently that Opal is a woman of color.
Oh no.
Uh-huh.
I've seen the
And
girl. You can't do
uh-huh,
that.
uh-huh. And so I think she just said this to give more claim to her, to give more, what word am I looking for?
More leverage.
Yeah, I think she just said this to give more legitimacy to her claim
That's yeah.
that, Opal was stolen by Amy, but it just created an even bigger shitstorm. People rightly told her, like, white people shouldn't play characters of color.
Yeah.
And let me pull up the screenshot of her response to this because it's just
Yeah.
it's insane.
It,
So somebody
it's so
told
weird.
her not to play a character of color, and she said, I love how people are making this a race issue, 'cause I'm not, but you all seem to think I can't play my character with darker skin. That's you being racist against me.
What the fuck? No, you can't say that.
No.
You
Like, what does that
can't.
even mean?
You can't just say that out loud or on the internet.
You absolutely not. Any white person on the internet trying to say that anybody is being racist towards
You
them
cannot.
has like, that's not how that works.
It's absolutely not. Like I have a character that I've talked with you about that I even making I was like this is kind of it's a skirting weird territory because he's a samurai and I'm like I'm
Mhm.
not Japanese. He's
Right.
not even like there is like I think there's an official wizard's samurai class. Let me look this up. I think I've seen it before and somebody like linked to me once samurai 5e official class. I don't think there is, but like I think somebody linked to me one that was in something.
Hmm.
Um,
I feel like I've seen that too.
and they've got like a lot of like crazy mystical samurai powers. Like that's not really good. Like that's a bad look. It's like the monk class in 5e standard is like kind of weirdly like it's very Asian coded.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's one of the only classes that is so also.
Which is like extra interesting.
Yeah, and like all the other classes are like, oh, a druid, I guess you could maybe get Celtic
Yeah.
vibes from it, but it's not like so coded into like, yeah, they lived in their Celtic region. It's
Right.
literally like monks live in monasteries, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess. But like the
Yeah.
samurai class is the same thing, but I ended up going with for all the D&D nerds that are listening, I'm playing a battle master fighter who is just samurai themed. And like this is better because it's not like mysticizing
Yeah.
Japan in a weird way, and
Right.
it's
Which
even
is
the
fallen
character
into a
is
lot by people.
yes the character is also like a gorilla man, and even then he's more Wukong style than anything else. Like he's got ginger hair and tan skin because of the weird stuff that's happened, and it's just like I forgot where I was going with all this, but I'm like, even that, all that made me feel like I have to double check and triple check to make sure I'm not being offensive playing this character. And even in a private game, I don't want to be like the weird guy playing something.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have a guy that has a giant katana. That was my whole
Right.
thing, and I think I did a pretty good job so far. We haven't played yet, but
I would agree. So she later turned around and said that she only ever said that Opal was tanned, which, like, I guess she's implying that Opal is a white person who has gotten a tan, but,
all right,
like, sure, okay, but when you cosplayed as your character, you didn't put on, like, a self-tanner, so...
yeah,
Like, I think that's just, she was like, oh, oops, I did a racism. Let me
Yeah, oops.
backpedal and pretend that I didn't. And so the Noir Enigma, whose pronouns are he, they, and Barnaby, whose @ is that's_Barnaby, and their pronouns are they, them. Both have really good TikToks on this specific topic. And they both bring up a really good point. That when Critical Role was all white and like Matthew Mercer, a white man, was the DM, nobody hurled any crazy accusations against them. But when a campaign featuring players of color and a black DM came out, a white woman immediately cried art theft and changed her character's race to make her accusations seem more
Yeah,
legitimate. She
Jesus.
weaponized her character's race, which wasn't even true, against these.
That's nuts. This whole
Yeah.
thing is just nuts. I like there have been issues like with the, Critical Role being all white, and like I want to say one of the characters was not. I think one of the people was playing a person of color, maybe.
Yes.
But I'm like I said, I don't know anything about Critical Role. But like
So I know enough, and this is something that people on TikTok for some reason have been tiptoeing around this fact. But the people of Critical Role are adults, and from what I can tell, they've handled criticism very well in the past, and so I think it's fair to criticize them. Marisha Ray plays a character. Marisha Ray is white, and I believe she plays a black character. And I just really feel like they should have reflected on that and
yeah, that's what I
not
was thinking
done
about.
it. Yeah. And I think that, like, I think that Marisha should be held accountable for that, and nobody is that I've seen. I'm sure people are. But I do not have any issue with saying that I don't think she should have done that. I don't think she should do it in the future. I just don't think, and this was another topic that I wanted to bring up with you specifically because you've DM'd a lot. People were not happy when other people on TikTok were saying that white people shouldn't play characters of color. And they were like, well, what about DMs? And I think a lot of people have said, and I agree, that there's a difference between creating a character and embodying them and trying to present their experiences as your own, and being a DM and, playing like an NPC who maybe even is related to like a character of color who's played by a real person of color. Do I think that a white DM should go out of their way to make a bunch of like stereotypical people of color? No, but I think that there's a difference between those two things, and I wanted to hear your take on that.
It is, as a DM, racist to not include people like
Right.
in your world building that are of different as sexual orientations too, on top of racial backgrounds. I mean, you're including elves and shit. You fucking put some black folks in the game. Just don't do voices.
Exactly.
Just don't do bad voices.
Yes.
Just speak normally. Just speak normally, respectfully. Don't make them the bad guys.
Don't make stereotypes
without good reason, at least. Like,
yeah,
like you can't just make all of your bad guys. Like, it's very, very big problem if you're making all of your bad guys a certain race. Even in the fantasy races, like if you make all of your bad guys orcs, then it's like, what are you saying about orcs? What's your correlation to orcs in the real world? Because you have real world connotations here.
And there's a whole conversation we could have about how so much of fantasy races and fantasy in general is based in like a racist worldview.
Like I mean, goblins. Like even like fucking J.K. Rowling made goblins like worse. Like she single-handedly made goblins more racist.
Made them worse. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's why in my world's goblins like don't have big noses. Like specifically, they still like to steal things, but they don't have big noses because that's that's an issue. Huge ears, like huge floppy ears, but like in any world I create, I'm not going to go and like make an Afropunk world. Like I love Afropunk as a medium for storytelling, and some of my favorite Swords Fall is very interesting as a I don't know if you've seen that one. It's like it's another game. I don't know if it's a 5e spinoff or what. Swords Fall. I'm gonna look this up real quick. I don't think, I think it's its own standalone game. So Swords Fall is an Afterpunk sci fantasy universe. So it's like Black Panther a lot, and
That's super cool.
it's very cool. I like it. It's one of my favorite like not Wizard of the Coast RPG settings.
Right.
That I would love to play in. I wouldn't run it myself, but I would love to play in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is in that weird space of like, is it okay for me to play? Like, that's something I have to tackle like on my own terms.
Right.
But I mean, that's things that it has, like, games have to be welcoming for everyone. And when you say that someone stole your character and have nothing to back that up with because everything's been done in D&D before, they're just a fool. That's all. This person's just a fool. They're making a fool of themselves and a fool of the community.
I agree. And
like,
I do think some good has come out of this situation. Like, I think it's really important to have these conversations. But specifically, I think it's really important to have these conversations without white people making it about themselves and crying and making people of color hold their hand and explain things to them. Like, do your research, figure it out, have those uncomfortable conversations without feeling attacked. And that's the issue with so many content creators that I see, where they see any kind of anybody trying to hold them accountable as an attack, when it's so easy to just not, to just,
just don't
apologize and reflect. Like, it's so frustrating to watch.
It is, and it's a lot. It shows a lot of people don't have that emotional growth to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And like, say if I, like, my character Bongo, the gorilla samurai. If somebody came up to me and was like, "Man, that's kind of like a bad way of portraying like the samurai aspect," like, all right, yeah, you're right. You're probably right. Let's work on it, make it better.
Right.
And then there's also, like, I don't know. When I make worlds, I always make things from a very Eurocentric point of view because that's what I know. That's why, like, I grew up here, like, in America, and then like fantasy novels were like King Arthur's court kind of thing. So that's what I have my knowledge base on, and that's what like the tropes that I can make use of.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go out of my way to make like an Asian adventure. Like, it just doesn't sit well.
Be my place to set a story and have like emotional arcs
like
come from that.
Even Bongo, the character, is not like it's such a weird like thing to talk about, but it's important to talk about how to do things in a correct way in this setting. It's like Bongo himself isn't of the samurai racial background. Like the Japanese inspired people are like a dwarf kingdom. And I made them a dwarf kingdom in the backstory because like the folded steel is like, oh, this is something that in fantasy dwarves are like super obsessed with, like making perfect weapons and stuff. So having a group of dwarves that are Japanese inspired and make like super great katanas is very like, that's the way that I made it. I was like, I think this works the best for the background and putting it into this world. And the DM for that game also has like a nice background system for like, oh, there are certain groups that look certain ways or act certain ways or have certain architecture because they peer into like the magical mists and see into our world or different worlds and get inspiration from there.
Oh, that's cool.
It's that's how we kind of work that all out. And it's not like the dwarves speak Japanese, they just make katanas.
Right.
Like that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And like it's I would never play that sort of character in any sort of production. I would play like a white guy who's obsessed with Japanese culture, but that's
right. Like
even
playing,
even that's like maybe too much kind of thing.
Right. You'd have to make it very clear that you're like trying to make a point and not condoning your character's actions.
I would either even if I was doing that, I think he would like come off as that at first, but then like actually super respectful and like I know a lot because I really enjoy the culture and like I study it a lot, and then it's just I just really like katanas. Like,
right.
That's like me too. It's like I really like I like a lot of other cultures.
You wouldn't be a character that was like calling people baka every other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and like pretending like they're Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just. But then you get people that are just like, I'm gonna stir the pot, or I'm gonna do racist things because I grew up racist, and no one beat the shit out of me for it. So
yep, and I don't want to self-reflect at all, and everybody is bullying me, because that's what she's saying, is that people are bullying her. And she was like, well, I expected you guys to be on my side as a nerd, because haven't we all been bullied? But now you guys are bullying me, and it's like, there's a difference between bullying and holding somebody accountable for the shitty things that they're doing. And it's undeniable that she's doing shitty things.
yeah.
So we're not even done. Sounds
Yeah.
in this, because I wrote it out like this.
As my closing statement for this whole case, because I did start naming everything that we do case files. Like, that's just the theming for the naming of it. We don't do any like investigation besides like looking stuff up. But
yeah, I mean, I did do.
You do a lot of investigation. I should say I don't do any investigation. I just organize the case files. That's my role. But
I did extensive research, but I didn't reach out to anybody. So
yeah, we just use publicly available information. Yeah. That's the whole thing. That fits the case file theme, because we're just looking through like old stuff, right?
Yeah.
But my closing statement for this in general is her name on the internet is FreckledHobo, and people didn't expect shitty things. Like
wait, that's something that I wanted to bring up and I forgot. Like, it's kind of shitty to make it a cutesy persona, and she calls her followers her hobos.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Like, you're calling yourself like basically a homeless person.
Yeah, and like a very specific subset of like it's not even homeless, it's just people that travel across the country using whatever methods they can, because that's the life they want to live, or like they're forced into it. And it's like in that space, the best term to use for anybody is a community member, not a hobo.
Yeah, and girl, you live in LA, come on. And that so that goes into the next thing I wanted to say, which this person's at is I believe it's Perros Rena. But I'll have it linked. She tweeted a clip from FreckledHobo's live stream, her most recent one, where she was playing D&D as the DM, and FreckledHobo used the G slur. And the person who tweeted this is a member of the Romani community, and I want to thank them for bringing this up and posting that, because that's another really important conversation. I still hear a lot of people use this word.
I hear a lot of people self-identify, and then you like, hey, are you Romani? Like, I don't know what that is. Like, well, shut up then. Like, yeah. You can't. People don't, and it's like people still use like the action verb for it, like when they lose something, like, or they it's like stop doing that.
Yeah,
you have to stop. Can't be doing that.
So if you don't know what word it is, you can Google it, and maybe we can put like a link to an article about why you shouldn't use that in the comments or something. There's going to be a lot of links to attached to this podcast, because this is something that's ongoing, and I did collect this. This isn't old. I collected a lot of information from TikTok and Twitter, so I do want to credit the cosplay bunny on TikTok, whose pronouns are she, her. The noir enigma on TikTok, whose pronouns are he, they. That's _Barnaby on TikTok, whose pronouns are they, them. And then Badass Assassin on Twitter, and then I think on TikTok they're Badass Assassin 1, whose pronouns are she, they. And I will talk about them a little bit more in the next episode. We are going to have links to all of them on our Twitter and our YouTube and anywhere else where we can put links. So visit those if you'd like to watch. I highly recommend going to all these people's TikToks because they have a lot of good in-depth discussion, and they are also just good content creators. And I think it's important to boost them because they're doing all of this work to make people aware of stuff going on in the community. And there's also a charity stream that I want to promote. It is hosted by that 6'1" girl on Twitch. It is a one-shot called Oops All Opals, in which the
no.
players all play warlocks named Opal, and
Love
it's
that.
happening this Friday, July 30th, and it benefits the Dots RPG Project, a nonprofit for disabled tabletop RPG players.
That's wonderful.
We are Fern and Toby of Fandom Fighters.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening.
Before we end, actually, you're
yeah.
steamrolling me.
Sorry.
Slow down. We have comments on stuff that I wanted to read off. These are all YouTube comments. And I hooked it up so that all of our stuff go out to YouTube and multiple release platforms. And I'm super happy that I checked because 2 weeks ago we had some comments, and then just as recently as 2 days ago we got a comment from Nympheus.
Oh, lovely.
Nympheus says, I've been listening to Binge Your podcast all of last night and this morning, and I really enjoyed it. Very interesting topics, discussions, and you and your guest are very likable and pleasant to listen to. I hope you'll keep making some more, because I found your show very entertaining, informative, nice work. I'm also bad at writing comments, but I thought I might help you out, feed the algorithm a bit. Yeah, thank you for feeding the YouTube beast of the algorithm.
Yes, thank you and you are not bad at comments. That just made my entire day.
I'm a bad comment leaver. I'm the bad one.
Me too.
So thank you to Nympheus. Overdone Skeleton also left a couple nice comments. And Miss Colleen said, y'all deserve more subs. And that is true. We have 18 subs on the YouTube as of recording now.
Wow.
And if we get that to 1 million by tomorrow, that'd be pretty cool. Probably gonna get there in no time at all. But
yeah, and if we don't get it to 1 million, I'm gonna sue you guys, or I'm gonna force you all to put me on your podcasts and your live streams. So
yes, I'll do the same. Yeah. Also, if you leave comments, I will try to read them out, and then until that becomes too much to do, and then we'll do highest voted comments and stuff like that.
Yes,
but,
perfect.
Let us know what you thought of Freckled Hobo's whole thing. This is nuts, and we'll see you for the next episode.
Which is also going to be a continuation of this episode because there is even more to talk about.
All right, see you later.
Bye.